My name is Greg Doran. I'm the director of the Government Inspector. So, the Government Inspector is, I think, one of the great world classics. It's one of the greatest comedies ever written. And I became obsessed with Gogol as a great Ukrainian writer. He's been invited in and promoted in the Russian fold of great writers, but he was born in Ukraine, and his work is full of reference to the provincial life of Ukraine. But he spent his life longing to be in St. Petersburg. He thought that living in St. Petersburg would be like living twice, is what he said. When he gets there, he realizes that it's not enough to be in St. Petersburg, you have to be successful in St. Petersburg. And unfortunately, he started at the lowest rank in the civil service. The character Klestikov in The Government Inspector is based on who he was and where he started as this lowly clerk. But he tries everything. He wants to write, and he tries teaching, he tries everything. And eventually he meets the great writer Alexander Pushkin, who had influence at court, been brought up at court, and at some point, Gogol says to him, "Give me a plot for a comedy, just a line." And Pushkin, I think very generously, says, "Well, I heard about this guy who was a low-grade official. He turned up in a provincial town. They all thought he was a government inspector and kowtowed over him, and Gogol flies with it." And he said the play wrote itself, and he's got it in 2 weeks. The problem is the censor is never going to allow this play because it criticizes officialdom, it criticizes if you like, the civil service. But Pushkin says, well, why don't we, I have a friend who is a friend of the Tsar, and why don't we ask her if she will intervene with the Tsar on his behalf? She's named Alexandra Smirnov, and she goes to the Tsar and presents the case of the Gogol play. And the Tsar agrees. So he gets the imperial go-ahead, effectively. This is fine, except the people at the theatre, the Alexander Theatre in St. Petersburg, are told they have to put on this upstart 26-year-old play, and they don't like it. And poor old Gogol goes to the rehearsal and has a really hard time. The actors don't get on with him, they don't think it's funny, it's just a disaster. And even gets to the first performance, and he goes into the theatre and he sees the set of the mayor's house in provincial Russia, and he goes, well, this is just all wrong. Just the entire set is wrong. And he looks at the costumes, and for instance, Ossip, who is the manservant, has been given this glorious kind of livery with gold frogging, and he says it's completely wrong. The guy's a servant to a clerk. They think the only way they can make this play funny is by hamming it up and wearing really terrible wigs. And Gogol can do nothing about it. So it gets to the first night. The audience is packed. There is all the elite of St. Petersburg and all their gorgeous uniforms and pearls and dresses and feathers. And the Tsar is in the attendance. The Tsar chuckles throughout it, but most of the audience are baffled. This is unlike anything they've seen before. This is not like the old comedies they were all used to. So they're bewildered and divided. And Gogol just can't bear the whole experience. He doesn't even wait for the end when it's usual to call the author on stage. He flees, and he never sees the play again. So it's a sort of sad story. There are many ways of doing a great classic comedy. You can, of course, update it and put it into a modern context, because you can reapply the metaphor that he is using to talk about corruption in his own world. We've chosen not to do that. We think the play, historically, stands by itself, and the audience can apply the metaphor to their own world without us making parallels which maybe are not so relevant. Frances O'Connor's design and the costumes is one of the most beautiful sets I have ever had in my entire career, and very beautiful and very funny costumes. But it takes you into a world. We've used Ukrainian-inspired music, and you feel transported into a different world. And hopefully, that doesn't disguise the play's relevance to our own world and the corruption that we see is endemic around us in so whether it's your local parish council or a political party. It's there in the world we live in today. I think Gogol was attacking the corruption of his day, and therefore the corruption that we all recognize. But I think he was intending us to laugh at it, but I think also for there to be an aftertaste where you go, actually, maybe there's something serious we should look at here. I think I want the audience, as Gogol did, to have a great time and to laugh. And I hope that this production, if Gogol had finally saw the second production he ever saw of, and it happened to be ours, I hope we'd made him very proud.